This is another Tuttle Bull Malt in that I don't have a lot to say, but this was a really good book, and I want to make sure I give it a signal boost. I was thinking, I've always thought this, that one of the grandest palettes for drama, for movies, comics, stories, is the Western. And I think the Western gets a bad rap. I think people think of the Western as formulaic. And that's kind of ironic because the people who think of the Western as formulaic, they're drawing back on experiences they can't possibly have had because there were formula Westerns. John Wayne used to be a studio contract player and put out 5 or 6 popcorn westerns a week before Stagecoach, and he started making more substantial pictures. But you can't tell me that the people who look down their nose at westerns are familiar with those movies. Since Stagecoach, more directors like John Ford became aware that the western is just this vast expanse of a palette where you can tell any story. Speaking of John Wayne, you can tell stories as diverse as Stagecoach, Rio Bravo, The Searchers, The Shootist, and then, of course, Sergio Leone reinvented the genre with his spaghetti westerns. And I won't say introduced, but brought to greater prominence a young fella named Clint Eastwood, who made what I would consider to be the seminal Western, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, before going on to make the even more seminal Western, Unforgiven. In comics, the Western at one time was a very respected genre. In DC, of course, we had Jonah Hex and Scalp Hunter and Weird Western Tales. Marvel had the Rawhide Kid. But somewhere along the line, comics kind of got embarrassed by their westerns. They either reinvented them to get away from the traditional western. I think Marvel made Rawhide Kid gay, and of course DC sent Jonah Hex to the 27th century. But the genre came back, at least in DC, with Jonah Hex, and Tim Truman had a couple really good stories. In the late 90s, early 00s, I don't remember exactly when. But since then, there really hasn't been anything. And I'm heartened by the fact that Comicsgate is not shying away from westerns. The first Comicsgate Western I became aware of was Six Gun Gorilla. I've already done a video on that. Some of these, the concepts, I feel like Tony Shalhoub in Barton Fink. You know, where he says, Wallace Beery, wrestling picture. What do you need, a road map? Six Gun Gorilla. It's a gorilla with 6 shooters. What do you need, a road map? And I already did a video on that, saying that Six Gun Gorilla is just a ripping yarn. They have Octopus Cowboy. It's out there too. Now, I haven't read that. I have it. I just haven't had a chance to sit down with it yet. But again, Tony Shalhoub. He's an octopus and a cowboy. What do you need, a road map? Of course, Aaron Lopresti. with his fantastic work, Wraith of God. I didn't have the channel when I read Wraith of God. I think I'm gonna, when the sequel comes out, I think I'm gonna do a sort of a story thus far video like I did with Cyberfrog. And then we get to the comic that sparked my idea for this video, which is Jack Irons' Steel Cowboy. And I went into Jack Irons with no expectations, because I hadn't heard anything about it. I think, and again, don't hold me to this, I'm an aging boomer and my brain is deteriorating, but I think I saw the creator on John Malin's Comicsgate Showcase, or Comicsgate Presents, I'm sorry. And I have a tendency, I try to back whatever John Malin promotes on Comicsgate Presents. I think that's I think he's doing the movement a service by highlighting these up and coming creators, and I think as a consumer and doing my part of the movement I think my part is to back whatever gets promoted on Comicsgate Presents. And now pimp my comic with Shane Davis and Mandy Summers. But where I'm going with this is I backed it, and I got the tier that was the catch-up tier, so I got issues 1 through 4. And I sat down this week and read them, and I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed the story and how invested I got. It's a twist on the Western. Jack Irons is a half man, half machine. Oh, they have a word for that these days. It's called a cyborg. Jack Irons is a cyborg cowboy in the future who has a lot of past lives, and he remembers all of them. So all these past lives have kind of been the ingredients to making up who he is. And much like Joss Whedon's Firefly, the future is kind of this outer space Western type landscape. So there's a lot of either unexplored or not governed by the long arm of the law type places, just like in the West, where characters can get into all kinds of business, both above board and below board. I'm 4 issues in, and one thing I like about Jack Irons is I have this gag reflex to lore. When there's a lot of lore that gets spoon-fed to me too quickly, I kind of feel like I'm reading the scroll of a Star Wars movie and expected to memorize every detail that I'm reading. And it kind of makes me put my arms up and push away from the table, where in Jack Irons, the lore is given to you sparsely, in dribs and drabs. So you're learning about the character, you're learning about his past, and with a character like Jack Irons, about his multiple pasts, but it's not being shoved down your throat. You don't feel like you're doing homework. So it's an intriguing tale. I feel like it just got started because I'm 4 issues in, and I feel like there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have, and that kind of... It's the opposite of the gag reflex I have with too much lore too soon. When it's dribbled out sparsely and I have more questions the more I read, it kind of makes me eager for the next issue. I went and looked when I got done 4 to see if 5 was already up and launched, and unfortunately it's not. And it made me mad because I wanted to get 5 right away. But it has the opposite effect of being spoon-fed lore. Rather than push away from the table, you want to seek it out. And that's the response or the reaction I had with this book. So again, it's a Ball Malt video. I don't have a ton to say about it other than to talk about the vast palette that Jack Irons inhabits, and to say that it was a fun read that left me very intrigued, and I will be the first one there on launch day when they put Jack Irons 5 on fundmycomic.com. So check it out. This has been Tom Tuttle.